Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of EDU on Air. My name is Jennie Magiera, and I am the Global Head of Education Impact here at Google for Education. And I am excited to be back again with you this week to be talking about different tips and tricks to support you as we are surviving through distance learning and working with our students from afar. So just to dive in today, before we dive in today, I wanted to remind those of you for whom that this is the first time that we have a lot of resources. Oops, but before we begin, I want to practice our best practices, which is to make sure that we can have this presentation be accessible to everybody. So what I wanted to share with you is this is a Google slide deck that you can see. I just minimized it there so you could see it all right here. And in Google Slides, we have this great tool where I can come down and click here on captions. Once I click on that button in the Google slide deck, captions right here, then I have live captionings happening at the bottom of my screen. This is helpful for two reasons. One, this creates better accessibility for all viewers and all participants on this EDU on Air to make sure that they can access the content if they aren't able to hear me, if they're deaf or hard of hearing. But it also is helpful because it reminds me, as someone who is a pretty quick talker, to slow down, enunciate, and make sure that I'm taking time to really make sure that this can understand me. As you can see, this is going through and capturing me live. So sometimes the transcription isn't 100% accurate, but it is a great way to make sure that our students have at least better access than normal. For those of you, again, who haven't been to one of our EDU on Airs before, not only do we have this ability for you to access it, but all of these EDU on Air webinars in this series are recorded and available immediately after on the same website you used to access this one, educationonair.withgoogle.com. So yes, you can always come back, see it again, pause, rewind, or share with your colleagues. So again, this is Global Head of Education Impact here at Google, and let's talk about the impact we'll have today, which is talking about differentiation in distance learning. So these are the topics we're going to move through, which is using Google Classroom to assign by ability, allowing for choice and voice, using Google Forms for differentiated assessments, small group meetings, so we could still get that virtual kidney table kind of experience using Google Meet, and how we can use videos to review and allow students to have their ability to create. So let's begin by assigning by ability in Google Classroom. Now, at this point in the series, if you've been watching, you've heard of Google Classroom a lot. If you are new to G Suite and Google Tools or new to this series, if you're not familiar with Google Classroom, it is an amazing learning platform that we have available for free through Google, which allows you to organize student work assignments and interact with them remotely. One of the things that some folks might not realize is you can select students when you do assignments. So when I create an assignment in Google Classroom, I have the option to send it to every student in my classroom, or I can select individual specific students to send that assignment to. This is really helpful when I want to create a differentiated assignment. If I'm noticing through assessments or through my Google Meet instruction that some students are at a different place than others, or some students might need to catch up because they didn't have the access they needed, I can assign something to a group of students who need to revisit a topic, whereas I can help another student move forward or go to a different area of study. Now, for some teachers, this might not be exactly what you're looking for, because it can be a lot to have to click on every single student every single time that you want to differentiate. So what you can do is you can create different classroom courses for each of your differentiated groups. So for example, I taught middle school mathematics. If I had my 35 students broken up into 6 different ability groups or maybe math strand groups, based on an assessment or understanding of their needs, I could then create a different Google Classroom course for each of those groups and then give different assignments to each course. Another thing that's really great is you can also use Google Classroom to do collaborative group work. So what that means is I can have the different groups of students, and I can assign one shared Google slide deck, Google document to a group of students where they can all work on the same one together, either in real time or asynchronously. Using Google version history that you can see here, I can go back in time and see which student did what. So whereas historically as an educator, if I were to assign a science fair project to a group of 5 students, and I would assume that they all worked after school on the same project at someone's house or stayed late in the library, when they turned it in, aside from maybe handwriting, it would be really hard for me to see which student did what to contribute to that science fair project. When I look at that trifold board, did one student do everything by themselves? Was it really 2 students while one was snoozing in the background? Or were they all equitably participating? Again, using this revision history feature that Google Drive offers, I'm able to see these 4 students and see exactly where they contributed to it. So when I click on see all the versions, then it opens up that version history. And as you can see, those little different colored circles you see there have a name next to it. That might be hard to see in your screen, but it tells me which student did what. And it actually highlights on the screen what exactly they did. So that's really nice. The other thing I can do is go back to an older version of a document. So if I thought the students were on the right track, but they kind of went off course, I could restore an older version of their Google Doc, Google Sheet, or Google Slide Deck to allow them to return to a place where they were doing it maybe a little bit better. So what I want to do now is pause and show you what this looks like. These 3 tips: selecting students, classrooms by group, and collaborative group work. So I'm going to go here to my Google Drive. Actually, I'll go to my Google Classroom first. So I'll go to Google Classroom, and I'm going to come over here to Jennie Academy. I have a fake classroom here, Miss Magiera's classroom. And what I can do here is I can create a new assignment. So I just click up here on classwork and create, and I can create an assignment, a quiz. A question would be for like discussion. So if I wanted to have a class discussion on a passage of a book or a mathematical problem, maybe a word problem or a project-based learning problem, I could do a question here, or even just like, how are you feeling? How are things going at home? I could assign materials, or I could even reuse a post. Topics allow me to create tags for my different assignments. So again, if I'm a mathematics teacher, I might tag it by algebra, number sense, geometry. If I'm an English language arts teacher, I might tag it by main idea details. If I'm an AP literature teacher, I might tag it by some of the themes we're exploring or authors. So your topics could be however an organizational methodology works for you, but that's what that is. Well, let's hop into assignment. So when I go into assignment, I can call this, let's call this multiplication reteach. Maybe I noticed that some of my students were struggling with 2-digit multiplication, and I can, give some instructions here. I can add an existing file I have from my Google Drive. So maybe I created a Google form quiz or a slide deck that takes students step by step through 2-step multiplication. Maybe I have a link to another resource, maybe a software program that I have a subscription to. Can add a file for a non-Googly file I want to attach, or I could just attach a YouTube video. If I haven't already created an assignment, I can click create, and right now I can go ahead and create it. So I can click doc, and it lets me go ahead and create the doc right here. So I can just do that now. So I don't have to prepare it in advance. I can say multiplication assignments, yay, math is fun. here is your assignment. And I'm sure yours will be a lot more thoughtful than this, but you could put some things in here, drop in, you know, some tables, like you could do some good lattice multiplication here, do some good like 3 by 3 digit multiplication. But anywho, you would create your assessment here, or your assignment rather. But then I can say who I'm assigning it to. So I can say all of my students, or I can say, I just want Asha and Kyung to have this. Jalen, I saw that he got it on the last assignment, but Asha and Kyung may need this reteach. So that's where I can select specific students. If I had multiple courses, I only have one course right now, but if I had multiple classes or courses created, I would get a drop down here and I would be able to select more than one course. So that's really helpful. For example, if I have multiple courses, like I could create another course here, create class, and I can create a small group. So math small group 1. And then I can continue creating these additional classes and adding my students to it. So this might only have Asha and Jalen in it. If I go back to my Google Classroom classes, I can come over here and create another class called Math Small Group 2. I could always add, you know, more information here, but we're just doing this for an example, so I won't go ahead and go through all of that right now. And then what I'll do next is I'll make sure I've added my students to these courses. I can either do that by having them take this class code right here, this class code that you can see, and have them log into Google Classroom and join a class. Or I can directly invite them by coming up here to People, and I can click plus, and I can start typing in a name of a student. So I could type in like Asha student or so-and-so, you know, Asha at jennieacademy.org. Here she is. And I can just add her to my class. So I can either manually invite them, or I can be in a Google Meet and tell them to type this in and join the class themselves. Once I have all the classes, then you can see here under 4, I can select which courses. So maybe I want to give this to Math Small Group 2 and my class, but not Math Small Group 1. If I want to give it to just my whole class, then I can individually select students. So that's 2 different ways to think about it. So again, I can either select individual students, or I can create multiple classes for each small group. So I'd create one big class for all 35 of my students, and then 6 little classes for each of the small groups, just in case your groups are static and stay consistent, and I don't want to check names off every single time. Now for this collaborative group work, let's go back to my assignment. So let's say I'm giving this assignment, and I want my students to work on it as a group. I have 3 different options for sending this document. And this works, by the way, for docs, slides, sheets, drawings, and forms. It works for all of these Google Drive files. I can either just have them look at it. So that means it's almost like a PDF. So it's not a PDF, it is a Google Doc, but it essentially functions like that. So they can look at it, but they can't edit it. Sort of like a look but don't touch. Students can edit the file, means every single student in this entire class can edit this file together. And then make a copy for each student means each student individually gets a copy of this document. So that means if I assign it to 10 students, they each get 10 individual private versions of the file, where if Jalen types in his, Asha does not see what she's typing, and vice versa. As the teacher, I have view access to all of it, but the kids can't see each other's. If I want to do it in small groups, I'm going to click Students Can Edit a File, and I would name the document by group. So I would call this Small Group 1 Multiplication Assignment. And then when I create another document, I might call it Small Group 2 Multiplication Assignment. And that way the students, if they know which group they're in, they'll click on the correct assignment to go into it. All right, let's keep going. So those were just 3 ways for you to think about using Google Classroom to differentiate small group assignments and really allow you to get that small group feel even when you can't be with students, and meet with them again around a kidney table, or give them however you've done centers or small group differentiation when you get to see your students in 3D. Now, another really wonderful thing to do as an educator in this space to help with differentiation is to allow for choice. And what we mean by that is to make sure that students have a sense of agency and voice when they are completing the assignments. So one way to do this is give different ways for them to access the information. So I could give them an option of looking at a video, different websites, reading materials, diagrams, so that I have different modalities or ways to access it. So you can see here, for example, in this picture, and I'll go ahead and zoom in on this image because I know it's a little bit hard to see. But if you take a peek here, you can see that, oops, let's undo. I'll just go ahead and zoom in this way. You can see that in this example, we have assigned assignment on the planets, but we've given 4 different options to interact within: a Google slide deck, a video, a website, and a YouTube video. So this is really nice because then that student or those groups of students can say, hey, this is the way I'm going to best learn, and I can select that. So it's, again, that thinking about the way they're consuming the information. Another really interesting way, so that's the input, letting them select or have agency on how they learn, the modality through which they consume the information. Also giving choice and voice around how they show what they know is another great way to differentiate. So again, we're thinking about differentiating the way that they consume the learning and the way that they output the learning, the input and the output. And what you can do here is use Google Classroom's built-in rubrics to create need, should, could, or must, should, could rubrics. Essentially, what this allows you to do is create a rubric that gives each student the ability to see what they have to do on an assignment, what they could do on an assignment, and what they should do on an assignment. So when I go back to my assignment here, I have the option at the bottom to click on rubric. I'm going to go ahead and create rubric. Something really interesting here is you can create one new here. You can reuse an existing rubric, or you can import something that you already have in Google Sheets. So if you've used Google Sheets like a spreadsheet to create a rubric, you could just import it here. In this case, I'm going to create a rubric. So what I can do here is say must do. And I could put in the things that I want the students to must do. So I could say, these are the things you must do to get credit for this assignment. And then I can use the rubric. I can say the different types of points and give different levels, like easy, 2 could be moderately difficult, and 3 I could say would be challenge. Then I could put in here complete 3 slides showing your math learning. Complete 3 slides showing your math learning and explain your thinking. And then I can say explain your thinking and create a video teaching others how to do each step. So I can say this is what you must do, and they can pick which level of must do they'll do. But then I can add another section that could be should do. And this means, hey, if you have time, this would be great to do. And again, I could then make a rubric of how they should do it. But then I could create another section called could do. And this is if you're interested, try this out. And again, I can create some descriptions on some things that they could do for a could do. So I could put in here, play a math game, create a math screencast, write your own math word problem. So once I do that, and I have to put in some points here. Sorry, let me just do that so it'll let me save. And again, here I would put in some descriptions, but for time, I'll just put a bunch of nonsense. When I hit save, da 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 da, la 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 la, I can click on that and the students will see it this way. They'll see must do, should do, could do, and as the teacher, I can go in and grade these. So again, this is giving my students some option of choice. So for the mathematics reteach, I could put in the assignment here of all the things that I'm wanting them to do, and then a rubric that would hopefully relate to this. And they could then see like, all right, here's this big, hurt your head assignment. The rubric gives me some choice about where to begin and what I need to do to be successful. Now, something interesting about this is I can set a due date, but I can also schedule this out for the future. So if I'm a person who likes to get all of my planning done over the weekend, so I don't have to spend every weeknight in front of my laptop lesson planning and preparing for my students, which is definitely who I am as an educator, I can get all this done on Sunday night and then schedule out all of these assignments for different dates and times, meaning that once I finish on Sunday, it will auto-magically release these assignments to the students I pre-selected or the classes I pre-selected at the exact day and time that I select here. So let's come back over here. Now, another thing that is really great to do is learning menus. Learning menus are sort of like a choice board, much like we had with the rubrics in the previous slide, where you can do must do, should do, could do. But learning menus allow you to, without the rubric and the points and all of that, and if you don't want to go into Google Classroom, still give choice. So what you could do here is create a slide deck with different tiles or a table, just like you see here in the image, and the students could select which of these activities they want to complete. You can either share this to them through Classroom, or you can email it directly to them if you're not using Classroom. If you want, you can have the rubric embedded right here, as you can see, where I have the different colors represent different points. So green is 1 point, orange is 2 points, yellow is 3 points, and purple is 4 points. So I can give my students not only a choice on what they want to complete, but an understanding and agency over, if I select one of these, how many points am I getting? For those of you who are fans of the American game show Jeopardy, it feels a little bit like that, where you can say, I'm going to select an easy, an easy one for 100 or a more challenging one for 500. So I could pick 5 easy tasks for 1 point or 1 difficult task for 5 points and get the same number of points overall. The next thing that you might want to explore is differentiated assessment in forms. So what we mean by that is not only do you want to differentiate how your students are getting the information, so the input, how they're showing you what they know, so the output, but also how are you assessing them? So the first thing is assigning forms and thinking about how you can assign different quizzes to different students through classroom assignments. I just showed you in Google Classroom that you can assign an assignment to very specific groups of students. So what you could do is create different short exit tickets or formative assessments for students and assign different ones to different students based on what you want to know about them. Another thing that you can do here is use the feedback to direct learning. So as you can see in this video, you can turn any Google form into a quiz. Meaning, if I select that option in the form, I can give points and I also can add feedback. So for incorrect answers, I can actually give them instructional feedback that even links to a YouTube video or a website that will reteach. So if a student gets the wrong answer, it's not just meh, wrong. It says, that's not correct. Here's maybe where you need to re-examine your thinking, and here's a resource to learn it again or to try it again. So then if you allow the student to take that quiz more than once, the quiz is not only assessing their learning, it's also reteaching them, which is really great as a teacher because then it's kind of cloning you and allowing it to be an instructional tool and an assessment tool all in one. Branching forms are also really amazing. What branching forms allow you to do is when a student answers a question, a multiple choice question in a certain way, it'll then dictate the next question they get. This is like an adaptive assessment that you see through some of the big assessment companies out there, but you can build it yourself through Google Forms. So for example, if you have a question and the answers are A, B, or C, if they answer A, which is the correct answer, maybe it goes to another question that's of higher level difficulty. If they answer B, which is the incorrect answer, then the next question might be easier. If they answer C, which was like a red herring, and it's like, I wasn't paying attention at all, maybe it takes them to a page that shows them a video and refocuses them or reteaches them. So as the teacher, you get to select which direction the quiz goes into based on how the student answers the previous question. This is called a branching form. I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. Now, for those of you who are watching who are deaf or hard of hearing, I want to apologize. As you've noticed, when I leave the slide deck, it stops the closed captions because the closed captions is a feature in Google Slides. So I hope that following along with my clicking is still helpful, and I'll try and recap orally when we get back to the slide deck. So let's come over to my Google Drive, and I'm going to click New. I'm going to select More drop-down for these other Google Drive options, and here's Google Forms. I'm going to go ahead and call this my, well, we already did math. Let's call this our ELA assessment. All right. In the sentence, I don't know blank to go. Which homonym is the correct choice. So I can say, I don't know where to go, I don't know where to go, or I don't know where to go. Or maybe we can put in a where too. So in this instance, here are my 4 options. I can make this required, so the students have to answer this one question. And then I can click on these 3 little drop-down menu items right here. I can have it go to a section based on an answer. So what that means is it'll skip to another part of the form based on how the student answers. So to do that, I need to create more sections. And that's this, it looks like an equal sign right here. You can tell I'm a math teacher, I think, in terms of math signs. So I can say, where is the next section? Another section, or where, like I wear clothes, is the next section. Where, like where art thou, Romeo? And where is the third one. So I can create a new section based on answer. And then I can create questions or just content here. So were is not correct, so I could make this maybe easier. I could put an easier question here, which would be blah, 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 blah. Where is not the right answer. Again, I can put an easier question, or maybe I want them to think about like double vowel pronunciation of where and where. Maybe I want them to think about homonyms. So maybe I don't put in a question here. Maybe I put in a YouTube video where I could put in like where versus where. Ooh, look at this. So I don't know if that's correct. You will as a teacher want to preview these videos before you assign them to the students to make sure they're accurate and appropriate, because sometimes there's some unfortunate Easter eggs out there. Watch this video and try again. Where could be the correct answer. You got it. And maybe I put a more difficult question in here. Difficult question. And where maybe I put in that same homonym video here. So I've set up all these different options. And what I'm going to do now is come back to the original question. click on the this little 3-dot menu item, and click Go to Section Based on Answer. And so if they click Were, then I want it to go to the Were page. Where, like I wear my clothes, it's going to go to the Where page. Where, like Where art thou, Romeo? We'll go to that page. We're, like we're having so much fun on this EDU on Air. I don't know where this accent's coming from. We'll go there. And so when the student is completing this assessment, and I click Where, next, da 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 da, it goes to that one. So they never even see the other options. I can always go back. So if I click where, like I wear clothes, I watch this video, now I can go back and try again, and now I know it's where, and I get it right. Hooray! Now, whether or not you do the branching form, you can always turn this form into a quiz. And I can do that by clicking on Settings, and I can go to Quizzes and select Make this a quiz. Hooray! Now, note you can do locked mode on Chromebooks, which is really great as an educator when you can't be there with your kiddos in 3D. If they're on Chromebooks, this means they can't open new tabs if you don't want to do an open book test, and it makes it a more secure testing environment. I can release the grade right away. I can select what respondents can see after they finish it. But then what this allows me to do is put in an answer key and add points. I can say this question is worth 5 points. And I can answer feedback for incorrect answers, and feedback for correct answers. So when I'm taking the quiz, oops, I have to go back, sorry, and say which one's the correct or incorrect answer. So I'll have to select where is the correct answer. So when I click where, that's not quite right. So it should give me some feedback saying, not right. If I get the correct answer, it'll give me that feedback as well. So again, a really great option for you to differentiate the actual assessment. So again, for those of you who are using our subtitles, that was a really great way for you to use branching forms and the quiz feature in Google Forms to self-differentiate and turn the form not only into a differentiation tool for assessments, but also a differentiation tool for instruction. At the end, I'm going to share some resources for where to go to learn more, where we have subtitles in the closed captioned YouTube videos for you to see step-by-step how to do all of this. Now, another thing that you can do is also use small group meetings using Google Meet. So sometimes I just want to meet with my students in smaller groups to do virtual in-person instruction, not through a video, but I just want to have a conversation with a small group of students. So I can create separate meets at separate times to work with ability groups, and I can differentiate instruction by presenting and discussing separately to each group. Just like you would around a kidney table with a group of students, I can do that using Meets. So I might have a slide deck prepared just like this. I might share my screen and move through the deck. But another thing I can do is also use an amazing tool called Google Jamboard. I'm going to now go to my Drive and show you Jamboard now. So again, those of you who are following along with the subtitles, my apologies, but follow along with where I'm clicking, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So we're going to Google Drive, and I click New. And just like I did with my Google form, I'll go to More, and Google Jamboard is the last but not least option on this menu. For those of you who haven't been with me for my previous EDU on Airs and haven't seen this, Google Jamboard is a virtual whiteboard. So I have all of these different options to draw, erase. I can go to my drawing and I can select the thickness and the color. I can also have a pointer to point things out. I have sticky notes. Hello, this is a sticky note. I can change the color and rotate it as well. So here's the color change. Here's the rotation. I can also duplicate or delete. Duplicate or delete. I also can add images directly from my computer, or I can do a Google image search. So I can say, I want to find an image of a llama. Everyone loves a good llama. Hello, llama. I can put my llama in there. And then I have this great laser pointer tool, which allows me to show what I'm talking about. So here's the llama's eye. Here's another eye. Here's the mouth. So I can point it out, but it does not leave a mark. It's just a laser pointer tool. I also can change the frames, and I can change the backgrounds. So I can have isometric paper, or sorry, not isometric paper, but dot paper, lined paper, graph paper, and just a dark background, which is nice. So I can use this. Let's come back here. So I can use Google Jamboard to be my virtual whiteboard when I'm instructing both large group, but small group is nice because, like all Google Drive files, I can invite my students to be editors in the Jamboard. So as I'm doing the Jamboard, my students can join in as editors and work with me in real time collaboratively. So that's like sitting at a kidney table with students having their own slate boards, writing with you, or inviting a small group of students up to your chalkboard, dry erase board, or interactive whiteboard in your classroom and working with them at the board, one on 3 or 1 on 5. Next, think about videos for reviewing and for student creation. So sharing videos is a great way to differentiate. You can find videos on YouTube that are instructional and informative so they can watch and rewatch. You can record your own lessons. I have an entire EDU on air just about creating virtual video lessons, and I'll show that to you in just a moment. And you can screen record like I'm doing right now and having a voiceover, just like I'm doing. Once I either find videos that already exist, record my lessons, or create screencasts, then I can create differentiated playlists. I'm sorry, I'm seeing what the subtitle said. Let me try that again for those who are watching the subtitles. You can create differentiated playlists so that students get an individualized playlist of videos at their level that will help them just where they are. So I can create it either by group, by ability level, or if you really want to for a student who's on an individualized education program or an IEP, I can create one just for that one student's accommodations or modifications. Creating videos is really great to do to help students see what they know. Again, here is a screencast of a Jamboard. I will show you in a moment a link to an EDU on Air where I show you how to create these differentiated videos on your own. But it really is great for you to create as a teacher. However, something to literally flip the classroom, not just flipping the classroom and sending videos home, but actually making the student the teacher, is asking the students to be the teacher themselves. So inviting students as an assignment to create their own instructional videos to show what they know. It gets to a higher level of understanding and synthesis, and bonus, they might be really high quality videos that you can then provide to their classmates to help them understand the concept at a higher level. So as I mentioned, I created a EDU on Air about this in the past. So if you go to educationonair.withgoogle.com, as you see right here, right there, educationonair.withgoogle.com. And my friendly Googlers who are behind the curtain answering questions can go ahead and drop them in. If you scroll down to ongoing series and go to global distance learning series, you'll see that there are all of these options that already happened, but I can also, or that are upcoming, but I can go on the ones that are on past, which means they're all on demand. And one of the options that you can search for is virtual lesson. Oops. Let's see if we can find it. Maybe it's not in the series. Let's go back. Sorry about that. I thought it was organized here. It might be in a different section. So there was one that we created around, here we go, creating interactive video lessons. I didn't remember what it was called, so here it is, apologies. Creating interactive video lessons with G Suite. So this is a great one to check out if you are looking for a longer tutorial on how to create your own lessons. And again, to my Googly friends behind the curtain, if you don't mind dropping a link to that in the chat, that would be much appreciated. So at this point, I want to just share with you a couple more resources. One is that tonight at 5 o'clock Central, we are going to be having a Twitter chat where we will be talking all about differentiation in distance learning and helping those of you who want more information on this, want to jump in a conversation about this, really unpack what is distance learning and differentiation look like when put hand in hand. This will be co-hosted or co-moderated by two really amazing educators who I'm friends with, Natasha Rachel and Kim Lane Clark, who are EdTech experts, Googly experts, and will be live on the chat, answering questions and resharing resources as you do that. So it's tonight at 5 o'clock Central in just a little bit over an hour. You can follow along by going to Google EDU chat or Teach from Home. Either hashtag will allow you to follow it. So now I want to turn it over to questions, any questions that we have. So I see here Julio has a question saying that the other day I made a correction to a question that was in the image. I changed it, and in which the students had to attach their resolution. However, students had trouble viewing the update I made. How can I solve a problem like this live? So if you're talking about through Google Classroom and you're asking, you assigned something to the students and you had to make a correction, you'll probably have to update the assignment and send a message to the student saying to take a look and refresh. If you're talking about if you're in a Meet chat, then it's a matter of just naming it, just like you would in class, saying, oops, I made a mistake. How do I, take a look at this? Let's try it again. If I didn't quite get that right, Julio, feel free to jump in. Another question about Jamboard from Andrea. Are you able to put a template in the background of a Jamboard and have students answer in teams at the same time? Yes. So I can put a math problem, an ELA prompt, anything in there, and I can bring up to 50 students into a Jamboard to edit the screen at the same time. With that being said, I highly recommend you don't bring in 50 students at once. I even recommend you don't bring in more than 10 students. Thinking about just a tiny little space with lots of kids editing, it can get very chaotic. I find best practice is having maybe no more than 5 or 6 students edit at one time. So either calling volunteers in groups of 5 or 6 or doing it in small groups. It looks like someone else wants to repeat the process to turn on the captions. I apologize, thank you. So again, coming over here to the option to repeat the captions, my apologies for not bringing that back on. So for those of you who were watching at home but didn't hear the last two questions, the first one was around if you make a mistake live and you want to create a correction live, how do you make sure your students see the update? If it's in Google Classroom, it's about putting an announcement in Google Classroom and asking them to refresh. The second one is about Jamboard, and can you use a template in the background of a Jamboard to have students answer in teams at the same time? I said yes. And while technically you're able to have groups of students up to 50 interact in the Jamboard as editors at once, sometimes it just makes the system overload and it can get chaotic. So I recommend you not allowing more than 5 or 6 students editing a Jamboard at the same time, just for classroom management's sake. Another educator's asking, can you limit the students to a certain frame on the Jamboard? Not yet. That's a great feature request. We can add that in. So right now it would be more a directive of, hey, we're all on frame 6 or frame 7. Let's see here. Any other questions that we have? All right. Well, all right, it looks like we're pretty covered. So, oh, if anyone has any other questions moving forward, there's a couple different places you can take a look. So one is going to our Teach from Home website, and that is a great place for you to find all of the different resources that we have available to you as through this Education on Air series and beyond. We've created an actual course on distance learning. We also have a lot of really amazing resources around how to get started with our different Google tools. So I really recommend that you check out our Teach from Home website. If you are looking for more beyond our Teach from Home website and you really want even a deeper dive into distance learning teaching tools, then I would recommend you check out our COVID-19 resource page. So let me just show you where to find both of those. So you can find our Teach from Home website by going to this site. Go g.co/teach from home. And for more in-depth support, you can go to our COVID-19 research page, which is g.co/edu/COVID-19. Again, my friendly Googlers who are in the background will drop those links into the chat so you can have access to it and you don't have to scramble to type it and get the spelling correct. But these are two really great resources to find more support down the line should you want more in-depth tutorials and walkthroughs on the tools and ideas I shared today, and also things I didn't share today. So I'll leave this up on a screen for just a moment more. Thank you again, everyone, so much for joining. All of you are doing such incredible work to support your communities, your students, your families, and I want to share my gratitude to all of you, as always, for the endless energy and support that you as educators are providing to the future of our world. So thank you. Please continue your great work. I know that summer is coming up, and for some of you that means a respite. For some of you that means just more teaching, parenting, multitasking. For some of you in the Southern Hemisphere, it's not summer coming up, so you're really in it right now. So wherever you are, whether a break is coming up or not, thank you so much for all that you do. So please take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, don't forget to wash your hands. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.